Hi, I'm Linda Andel, Financial Policy and Strategy Analyst with the City of Saskatoon. I'm here to talk to you about the Municipal Services Benchmarking Report that we completed based on a budget of 2009. I want to talk to you a bit first about the fact that each homeowner receives a property tax bill. Many people are surprised to learn that 100% of the revenue received from these property tax bills does not belong to the City of Saskatoon. In fact, 48% of that property tax bill belongs to the province for education purposes, 5% of your bill goes to the libraries for their services, and only 47% of the revenue from that bill goes to the city. It's the 47% that goes to the city that I want to talk to you about now. The information on revenues and expenditures that I'm going to talk about is going to be explained on a per capita, or rather a per person basis. By breaking this information down to a detailed or an individual level like that, perhaps it'll be easier for people to understand how much they pay and where their money is being spent. So this is the second year that Saskatoon has identified and quantified factors contributing to different tax rates between Saskatoon, Regina, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Calgary. In 2009, Edmonton had to generate the most revenue per person at $2,090 to fund its operating budget. Winnipeg was the least at $1,198, and Saskatoon had the second lowest at $1,406. Of the five cities then, Saskatoon relies the least on taxation to fund our operating budget, only $649 per person. Edmonton had the highest reliance at $1,062. Saskatoon's five utility funds contributed to general revenue by giving a return on investment of $303 per person. Self-generated revenue represents $197, and this is for services which are funded in whole or in part by the user fees, such as fines or penalties or admissions to leisure centres. Only Winnipeg was lower in this category at $161. The highest was Calgary at $453 per person. Government grants represents funding that we receive from the federal or the provincial government to help support our general operations. Saskatoon received $174 per person, and only Regina was higher at $189. In order to balance their 2009 operating budget, Regina, Winnipeg, and Edmonton all had to budget a withdrawal from their Fiscal Stabilization Reserve, and Saskatoon contribution withdrawals to fund operating is the lowest of all five cities. For the most part, the majority of revenue in the other category is from interest earnings, whereas Saskatoon is right in the middle of that category at $40. So that explains where Saskatoon gets their money to fund their operating. Let's talk about where we spend our money. General government is for services which provide general operation of the municipality. And in this case, Saskatoon has the second lowest cost at $137. Winnipeg was the only lower city, and it was at $106. Regina at $222. Calgary at $262, and Edmonton the very highest at $436. The next area on this chart shows protection of person and property category, and the majority of the costs there are for police and fire. Saskatoon has the second lowest general source funding at $303 per person, and also for the number of police officers at 420. But when considered on a per capita basis, we are comparable to the other cities. Saskatoon, Regina, and Winnipeg allocate the second largest portion of their general funding source under protection of person and property to fire services. Again, we have the second lowest general source funding requirement at $148 and the number of equivalents at 310. But again, we're comparable to other cities. The next category is transportation, and the largest components within this category are transit and street maintenance. Transit funding per capita is $102 and is the second lowest. The per rider is comparable with the other cities at $1.58. And so is funding per hours of service at only $50.92. Summer road maintenance is a very highly talked about civic service. Saskatoon has the lowest funding per lane kilometer for these services, and the second lowest funding per capita at $32. Edmonton has the highest funding per capita at $71. Funding winter road maintenance in each city varies greatly depending on the service levels adopted by those cities. But in Saskatoon, per capita, $27 is spent on winter road maintenance. the second lowest only to Calgary. Edmonton spends $69 per person, Winnipeg $46 per person, Regina $30, and Calgary $21. The environmental health category includes solid waste services and environmental services. The funding per capita in Saskatoon for solid waste collection is the lowest at $21, and then Winnipeg and Calgary at $23 and $25. Planning and development category includes all kinds of costs associated with planning, developing, and maintaining land and encouraging economic development. But also included in this category is parks and urban forestry and pest management. Funding per capita in Saskatoon for this service is the lowest at $52. However, funding per acre is at the second highest, and this is due to the various service level, but also the proportion of highly maintained park space. And highly maintained park space is that which is irrigated and mowed, compared to natural park space, and also the size of the urban forestry and the pruning cycles of each city. Recreation and culture cost category includes a wide variety of services, and service levels vary greatly in this category among the 5 different cities. The cost of running our 6 indoor leisure centers and our 4 outdoor pools in Saskatoon per person is the second highest at $41. Our leisure centers have the most admissions and registrations of the 5 cities studied. There are vast differences in debt servicing costs per capita between the 5 cities, and this may be due to the difference of the nature of the outstanding debt. Saskatoon has the highest credit rating of all 5 cities at AAA. The last category in this chart shows that reserve contributions are at $164 in Saskatoon, and that's the highest. Winnipeg is the lowest at only $3 per capita. So there we have it. The city requires $1,406 worth of revenue to fund its $1,406 worth of expenses.